What is going on, Gulf Coast Nation? In this week's episode, we're going to be bringing you guys something a little bit different. You can see behind me here, I have my bass tracker that you guys have seen in a few videos now. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to make a video to show you guys how we redid this boat, why we redid this boat, and why this boat is so important to me. Come on, let's go.
What's up, guys? I'm Adam Andrews.
And I'm Dylan Wier, and this is Gulf Coast Nation. Hey guys, real quick before we dive into this again, I'm going to put in the comment section the links to the times where I change subjects. I'm going to do a walkthrough of the entire build with all the pictures, and I'm going to do a walkthrough of the boat of how it is right now. So I'll link those in the comments, so if you don't want to watch the entire video and you're just curious about one part over the other, check the comment section and click on those link times. Thanks guys. Let me give you guys a little bit of background on this boat and why it's so important to me. When I was a kid growing up, I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and I did a lot of crappie fishing, a lot of bass fishing, and a lot of cat fishing. Now, I fished with a lot of friends, a lot of family, but one of my main fishing influencers and the man who did get me hooked on fishing as much as it was my papa. Now, I used to go over to his house every time that I could. He had a little pond in the backyard, and we would play wiffle ball, football, frisbee, and then we would fish just like non-stop. I would fish all day, get up Saturday morning, and then just fish all day, get up Sunday morning, watch the Bassmaster Classic. Anyways, and so we used to fish a lot of little John boats, and we would fish a deep V. We had a little deep V low boat, and we just fished local lakes. I mean, we just fished everywhere we could, and those were some really highlighted moments in my childhood. And in 2012, Papa called me one time and he said, hey, you know, I'm gonna pick you up after school and we're gonna go fishing, which like obviously automatically that was like the best day of the week so far. So I remember coming outside school, walking out and seeing him pull up in this boat. And I was like, what in the world, a bass boat? Like it was, let me tell you, like top of the mountain kind of stuff there. We had a live well in the boat, which was one of my favorite things. When we used to go out on the John boat, I would fill a cooler full of water and put fish in there just to, you know, like pretend like we had a live well. Of course, they wouldn't last long because there was no aeration, but we had a live well. There was a front casting deck, a back casting deck, a center console. I mean, we were just cloud nine, top of the world. And it was an awesome experience to get to fish out of this bass boat. Unfortunately, there was only 2 times that I got to fish out of this boat with Papa before he passed away. We did have, he had a stroke, and it was a sudden deal. We did not see it coming, and he did pass away in April of 2012. After he passed away, I was a sophomore in high school, ending my sophomore year before the summer of my junior year, and I did want to use the boat a bunch. He left it to me in his will. So we used it with some friends. We'd go out and crappie fish and stuff like that. But as I got older, I went off to college. That's how I made the move from Kansas City, Missouri to Orange Beach, Alabama, where I am today. And it did not, you know, it stayed up in Missouri while I was in college. I couldn't keep it at the dorms, that kind of stuff. And it was always in the back of my mind really heavy that I want to get this boat down here and I want to use it. I want to, you know, the carpet was dry rotting, that kind of stuff. So I wanted to get it down here and make it usable again. So when I graduated college, that was the perfect opportunity when we moved into our house to bring that boat down here. So me and my wonderful fiance Zuby, we got in the car on a Friday. We both took off work. We drove 14.5 hours to Kansas City, Missouri, got there Friday night to my mom's house, and we were just beat, you know, so we went to bed, got up early Saturday morning, I want to say like 6 o'clock, something like that, and we hooked back up to the boat and drove it all the way back down to Alabama, 14.5 hours one way, 28 hours total. And that was a long trip, but very awesome because it got the tracker down here and that's what we wanted to do. So a huge person who made this boat build possible was Mr. Terry McWaters. Now, a lot of you guys, Gulf Coast Nation, should know Terry or might know Terry because the beach cart that we use was custom made by him. The rod holders that are in the back of my truck that were custom made for the toolbox were made by him. And this entire boat behind me was because of Terry McWaters. Now, he does some fantastic aluminum work. If you guys are looking to have something done, definitely reach out to Mr. Terry. He is a super, super talented man, and he can definitely make, I mean, whatever it is, if you dream it, he can make it. So a huge thank you to Mr. Terry McWaters, because he's a great friend of mine, because if without him, this boat would be nothing like it is today. So I talked to Terry before all of this going to get the boat. He said, you know what, bring it down. Let's redo this thing and let's tear into it. So I brought it over to his house on a Sunday. Now, mind you, this was the winter time. This was around December. And I took it over there and I said, where do we even start with this thing? And he looked at the boat, and he said, look, I have a couple jobs to finish here. What I need you to do is I need you to take it back to your house, and I need you to take everything, rip this thing down to the hull. I'm thinking, oh no, here we go. Well, I took it home and the carpet was dry rotted. The carpet needed to go. The motor was a little 9.9 horsepower, which the reason we had that on there was because the lakes me and Papa fished were a 10 horsepower limit a lot of the time. So that was perfect for that thing, but I knew this boat would need a repower, so I didn't know where to start, but I knew what Terry told me to do, and I trusted Terry, so I went in there and I ripped every inch of carpet. I went in there and I tore apart everything. I tore up all the carpet that was kind of dry rotting. I tore up the little rod holder storage that was on the side of the boat. The next thing to go was the console and the seats out, and then I took out the little swivel seat mounts on the base of the boat on the casting decks. Then the motor came out next, and he said, look, rip every inch of wire out there. We're gonna rebuild this thing from the ground up. So the front casting platform was the only thing that had wood on it. We obviously removed that. And when I had everything tore down, I called Terry and I said, hey, look, I'm ready to go. So he said, bring it over and let's get a game plan. We had no clue on where we were going to start with this thing. We didn't have an end goal per se, just like, all right, this is exactly what we're going for, blueprint style. But we knew what the next step was, and that's kind of how we fought through this build. Was we went, okay, this is what we need to do tomorrow, and this is what we need to get done this week, and the rest will figure out itself. Once I got it to Terry's, we knew that we had to get underneath the carpet. There is a lot of red glue type sealant adhesive. I don't know what you call it, but it's what they put on the bottom of the carpet at the Tracker factory to make that carpet stick and never want to come up again. And obviously that needed to come off the aluminum so we could, get good welds on it. You want it to look clean again. So what we used was something like a Goo Gone or Goo Be Gone. It was actually a paint remover. You take this stuff, you got to put gloves on because it's just so much chemicals, it'll burn your hands. Put gloves on. We would lather it over the a surface, let it sit for 4 or 5 minutes, and it would actually take all the oxygen out and just eat through anything. And then you would obviously sacrifice the paintbrush you were using to that thing only, and then you would take a scraper and you would scrape off all that glue. And we scraped every inch of this boat. Now, a surface that's laying flat is one thing, but we had some vertical surfaces that we were working with that was really tough to get that stuff to stay. But in the end, we cleaned off all that glue, got the boat looking shiny, new. We polished up the aluminum, and it was time, once we tore down to the base bare minimum of what we had, to start planning for the build back up. Once we got this thing tore down to nothing but the hull left, we got the aluminum cleaned up, it was time to add some supports. We are gonna go, we decided to go with a flat deck for a number of reasons. The style of fishing we're gonna use this boat for is inshore. I didn't wanna be stepping up and down, and to me, a flat deck looks super clean. So the first thing we needed to do was add some supports to the deck. Now, we started with some L frames. As you can see in the pictures, they're on the sides of the boat here, just bent pieces of aluminum. It's 4 inches total length. When you bend it, you got 2 inches on each side. They were tack welded to the side of the boat. And then the next thing we needed was to add some support crossing the middle of the boat, where normally you would step down and you would have a side console style. We were gonna go with a center console and a center, cooler seat style boat. So we added some cross beams in there, going laterally and horizontally, and those were gonna make the deck really rigid, but you also wanted that support where those things are crossing is exactly where the feet of the center console is. So all the weight, you know, from the console, the cooler seat, and then your person or two people standing on the boat was not gonna make that deck flex any at all. We want it to be really rigid, but we were trying to find a nice happy medium between, you know, too rigid and too light. You don't want it to flex, but you also don't want to add too much weight to the boat because we want to keep it as light as possible. Now, a lot of this stuff, while it was going on, the boat stayed at Terry for almost the entire 45, 50 days that it took to redo this boat. Now, I will say, I am not good at you know, welding aluminum. That's not my forte. Terry is excellent at that. So while he was doing some of this stuff, I tried to go out and do some other stuff that needed to be done for the boat. So I did find a Yamaha 50 horsepower 4-stroke high thrust series that is a 2002 that I found for a good price, and it was a good motor. So I went ahead and, you know, during this process, drove to Panama City. I picked that motor up. I was super stoked. By the way, 50 horsepower motor is heavier than you think. I thought I could unload it by myself. What were you thinking, Dylan? I have no idea. But we did end up getting the motor in, and it sat in my living room for a long time. Zuby absolutely loved having that motor in the living room. I'm sure of it. And then, you know, I would take, what I also did while Terry was doing some of the welding work was I took the gas can out. It obviously needed to be cleaned. It did not look good. So I took it out, sprayed it with some cleaning stuff, let it sit for a day, washed it back off, and it came out perfect. And then obviously all the hoses needed to be replaced as well. So we would do that at a later time. Once we got all the supports added to the boat, we got, you know, the motor ready and the gas tank cleaned and all that kind of stuff, it was time to add our deck. Mr. Terry, again, so thankful for him. He drove to Pensacola with a flatbed trailer while I was working during the week and got a huge piece of 1/8-inch thick aluminum and for our deck, and that was going to be one flat deck. And basically all we could do is it was squared off, you know, I think it was 12 feet by 6 feet wide, bigger than the boat, you know. And then the only way to effectively do it and make sure it's a custom fit, because, you know, the boat is going to have little, you know, just little tweaks in the side of it that's, you know, you can't just uniform cut it because it's not going to fit perfect, especially since we welded some of the brackets on the side. That's going to warp some of the aluminum on the side and that kind of stuff. So all we could do with this deck was we had to cut, check, cut, check. Now I will say during this process it might just sound like, oh, you just cut and check it, but this aluminum piece was so heavy, so we would take it off, we would make a cut, we would pick it back up, carry it over to the boat, we would lay it down, you know, we would lay it on the back and then push it up to the front and say, okay, it's hitting here, we need to take 2 inches off here, 2 inches off here, pick it back up, lay it back on the cutting board, cut it, back on the boat, fit it, cut it. You know, it was probably at least a 2 or 3 day process of just all day checking, cutting, to make sure it got that really custom made fit. What Terry cut this deck was a plasma cutter. Now there's other ways obviously to cut the deck, but the plasma cutter is basically just a really powerful beam of heat that is, you know, he hooks it up to his air compressor. I don't know exactly how it works, but you can see in the video playing right now that it just cuts through that aluminum piece like butter. And then, you know, we would take a file to it, smooth out the edges, and eventually, lo and behold, we got that deck to sit in perfectly, and boy, was that a big step in this rebuilding process. So after we got the deck kind of mocked up and fitted, we went ahead and we cut the doors for it. We wanted to have complete access to this entire boat. So we wanted, you know, we wanted to have the front storage where the 2 batteries would go for the trolling motor. We wanted to have storage right underneath the console for the motor battery and accessory battery. We wanted to have access on either side of the console to be able to get good storage, and then on either side of the cooler seat the same way. So we cut 8 total doors in this boat, you know, in the front deck alone, to have good access underneath. I bring a lot of stuff with me on fishing trips, and I don't even use all the storage that we have on this boat, which is a good thing because I would rather have too much and not enough. So we went ahead and cut the doors. The next step after we got that deck on was to go ahead and start mocking up the console. This was another thing that we were doing, you know, just flying by the seat of our pants. I had a few pictures from Google that I, you know, showed Terry. And what we ended up doing was getting some styrofoam presentation board, and we would cut it up, and then we would tape it together, and we'd say, okay, that looks good, it's too wide, we need to narrow it. And we got kind of a mock-up, and then when we started putting it together, it actually took an entire day to get a sheet of aluminum to the console semi-mocked up and taped up like we wanted it to. The next day, Terry went ahead and he did some amazing welding work like he has this entire project. He welded that the inside and the outside of that console box that we had mocked up so far. And for those of you who do weld, welding the inside of that aluminum box, he said, was super, super loud. So I really appreciate Terry for doing that. I mean, I got there one morning and he had already had it welded up and was ready to go. So the next thing we needed for this console, you know, we had an idea. We went ahead and we drew out with a Sharpie on there, you know, okay, where's the steering wheel gonna go? Where's our switch panel gonna go? Where's the key gonna go? Where's the fish finder gonna go? All this stuff had to fit in a very tight space, but had to be efficient and also, you know, effective and usable, because that's what the boat's for. So we went ahead, we started drawing, we started planning out, and the same thing, took about a day to get to where we wanted to be with that, and it worked out perfect. As you can see in the picture, you know, everything fits in tight, it's all usable, it's not too tight a space, nothing's too close, and we could still effectively wire it without getting too much stuff jumbled up there. So I will say I went ahead and we went with hydraulic steering on this boat. If you guys are back and forth on the Finch on hydraulic steering or cable steering, let me just tell you, if you have the extra money to spend on hydraulic steering, do it. Don't hesitate, don't think twice about it, just do it. I love the hydraulic steering on this boat. I have driven plenty of boats with cable steering. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not gonna hate it. It's not gonna be an unusable boat or just a horrible time. But if you can go the extra mile and get the hydraulic steering, just do it. Now, after the console, obviously the next thing we needed to do was the cooler seat. And this was just an amazing process. Another one of those things that Terry just blew my mind with, because it was a Sunday. He was like, hey, what do you think about the cooler seat? I had the cooler I wanted to use, and I said, here's a couple images from Google. Do you think we can put rod holders on it? Yada, yada, yada. It was a Sunday when I gave him the idea. I came back on a Friday after working all week. I would come after work a little bit, and he sent me a picture one day, and it was done. Like, he had just made it in one day, bent all the aluminum, welded it how we needed to, and it just looks, I mean, you guys can see it right now. This thing was sweet. It had 4 rod holders on it when we built it originally, and you know, it had a holder for the lid so the lid wouldn't go too far. It had handles on the side to strap the cooler down. It was just amazing, and another one of those things that Terry did that just absolutely blew me away. So at this point, we had the console done, we had the cooler seat done, and the only thing we needed to do to add to those was the little feet on the bottom of them to distribute the weight and also be able to mount it to the deck itself. So after we worked on the front deck for so long, you know, getting the console and the cooler seat and the deck fit and the doors cut and all that stuff, we decided to focus a little bit on that back deck. The first thing we noticed that on the sides, the aluminum that they had was a little bit too thin, and it would actually flex when you stepped on it. So the first thing we did was took a little bit more of that 1/8 inch aluminum and put it on the sides of the back deck there. It would give it a little bit more rigidity, and then it would also just make it feel more solid back there, as well as the big back door was originally it had the back seat for it, and then it had the door to access the gas tank and the 2 batteries that were in the boat. Obviously, we're not putting any more swivel seats on the boat, so we went ahead and took out that entire door back there, made it super big, so the gas tank before would have to squeeze and maneuver to come out. Now that big door, you know, the gas tank sits straight down, it can fit. It's a huge door in the back. And then the live well, we added more support to it. The aluminum that was on the other side of the either side of the live well was kind of thin, and you know, over time it would just wear on it. So we added a couple more sidewalls to it, and then we added some more to the top. You know, after the welds, we grinded it all down, made it real smooth, and the back deck was looking good. So at this point in the build, it was time, finally, to get that Yamaha out of my living room and onto the boat. I had bought a jack plate from eBay, and I'm not even sure if they still offer this jack plate. It was 2 inches offset, so it would be just 2 inches from the back of the boat there, and then it would adjust 4 inches total, 2 inches up, 2 inches down. I really wanted that to be able to adjust it manually. If I could have swung it, I wanted a hydraulic jack plate, but one, it was a little unnecessary, and two, it was a little bit expensive, so I didn't need it that much. Once I found that motor where it needed to be, I was gonna be happy with it. But we talked about putting flotation pods, and I still might put flotation pods in the future, and that way if we do, it's obviously gonna raise where that motor sits, and I can just drop that motor back down so it sits even with the bottom of the boat to get me the most efficient take off onto plane there. But we got the motor. I'm telling you, when we got that thing up on the tractor out of my living room onto the boat, we ran that last 1/2-inch stainless steel screw through there, nut. It was just, I mean, it was one of those things. I stood back, I looked at it, and I just thought, holy cow, we're gonna do it. There's gonna be an end to this process, because by this time we were 25, 30 days into it, and it just seemed like we were gonna work on this boat for 3 years. So once the motor was on, we knew we were gonna start rocking and rolling. Now the big push to get the motor on so early in the build process was we were going to build a polling platform on the back of the boat. And obviously one of the big factors in building that polling platform and how it was gonna fit on the boat was the motor. When it was trimmed all the way up, you wanted to make sure the motor had enough room to trim without hitting the polling platform or causing any rubbing effect when we would turn either way. So once we got the motor on, we same thing, just kind of fly by the seat of our pants. Terry did an amazing job. He bent some aluminum, he got some ideas together on paper, and then boom, made it a reality. And you guys can see this polling platform turned out just awesome. We stuck 2 rod holders on it, so when you're standing up there, you know, you can grab a rod if you want, and then if you need to switch baits really quick, you got another rod right there in front of you, but you can still cast around it if you need to. Then we added a sissy bar on top, just so I could have some more stability if we were to hit some boat waves, or you know, I just get clumsy and decide to try and fall off the polling platform. So once we got the polling platform up and we got it functional, it was time to take the deck off one last time and do everything we needed in the bottom of the boat to not only prepare it for the wiring we were going to do, but anything that I would want to do in the future. That way, everything, you know, any more installs I'm going to do in the future are easy and they're seamless. So as you guys can see here in the picture, we took the deck off, and what we did was we actually ran 2-inch PVC pipe through the decking, and as you guys can see how it lays out, we will have access to every, you know, access hole in the boat. So if I needed to run it from the center console to the front access hole all the way to the front of the boat, I could. If I needed to run it from the middle of the boat all the way to the front of the boat, I could. That way, if I decided to install, you know, flounder lights in the future, or who knows, you know, where the next step will go, you know, I can easily run wires right through that PVC pipe, and you're not trying to thread it through too much. Now again, I feel like I just keep bragging on Terry, but this next idea is just, you know, same thing, blows me out of the water. We took I think it's 3.5 or 4-inch PVC, you know, to run from the console down to the deck, you know, to make it, you know, seamless, so you're not seeing a bunch of wires stick out running from the bottom of the console. And then we had a little bit of an issue to where it ran straight down was not where our batteries were going to be. It was going to be in a different compartment, and so we just thought about, okay, we'll drill a hole, and like, you know, where it hits the deck, we'll just really organize, run some wire and stuff like that. We talked about bending some PVC to make it seamless, but what Terry did was he took some extra aluminum we had laying around and bent it to where he makes a, you know, what we call a wire box. And so the wires would come down from the console into this wire box, and then, you know, into where we have the 2 batteries that were sitting between the console and the cooler seat. That way, you know, when you were in that front compartment where the onboard battery charger was, you're not seeing any wires everywhere. And also when I store stuff down there, if a hook gets around me, it's not tangling in the wires or cutting anything. I thought that was a genius idea. I love it. It's not only functional, but it makes the boat look really clean underneath. And when I'm wanting to do any other installs, it's super clean. It's super easy to run more wires. So once we got an attack plan for the wiring underneath the boat, we were ready to go ahead, hit that save button, put the deck down on top of the boat, and weld it in. Obviously, once we weld the deck down, it's not coming out, or at least it's not coming out easy. As you can see, we went ahead and marked out all the supports underneath that deck with Sharpie. That way, how we welded this boat was obviously we tack welded it around the outside, and then we would drill through that support, through the deck, down to the support bar, and then weld it to the support bar. Basically, is just really strong aluminum bonding glue that would hold that deck down. And, you know, allow it to be more rigid, but also allow it to be permanent. So we were ready for that process, which was an exciting step for us. And once you weld it, we would grind it down, we would weld, grind it down, weld, grind it down to where we got a good rigid deck, but it was also smooth and ready to prepare for our hydro turf. Now the reason we would grind and weld it down was so it would be a really smooth surface. Obviously that makes sense, but it was setting us up for the next step, which was getting the doors onto the access ports that we had cut out on the deck. So the doors was a little bit more finesse, for lack of a better term. We had to make these doors custom. We could use some of the aluminum that we cut out, but we would have to cut L brackets, which had to be welded. Then we had to make new support bars, to these doors, because the majority of them, all of them actually, would be stepped on, so we didn't want them flexing under pressure, and we also didn't want the hinges to be altered over time. So after we added some supports to them, we got the doors cut exactly how we wanted. It was time to go ahead and we pop riveted all the hinges to the doors, and then obviously the hinges and the doors to the boat and decking themselves. What we did was we went on eBay, we got 1/8-inch thick foam, and then we would peel and stick those around the outside of the door. One, to get a good soft quiet shut so you're not slamming doors when you're out there, and then two, it would get it a good waterproof seal so you didn't have to worry about any water from the deck rolling down into the bottom of the boat, getting some of the stuff you have stored wet. Now while I was doing this rebuild, something I really wanted to do, if I was going to do it, I wanted to do it right. So I wanted to get some electronics and some technology type things that would make life a lot easier. One of the first things I went ahead with was I went with the Garmin Striker 9CV. Now this unit is fantastic. It has great down vision, it has great sonar. Obviously the GPS on Garmin is one of my favorites, but it also had the clear view that I love using when I'm fishing structure, I'm fishing bridges, stuff like that. It really gets a good clear image so I can see bait fish separate from the predatorial fish. And then obviously one of my favorite things on this boat is the iPilot. I love, love, love this iPilot. It is the 24-volt version, 80-pound thrust. That is a little bit overkill for this boat, but I wanted to kill two birds with one stone because it also fits good on our Sea Fox, which we use a lot offshore, and to have the anchor lock function offshore is just killer. And it doesn't add too much weight to this boat. It does scoot it around pretty good, which isn't a bad thing, but it just worked out perfect. When I am fishing by myself, which I do a lot in this boat, I like to be on the polling platform. I have the iPilot remote right around my neck. I can stand up there and basically have a fishing partner up there driving the boat for me. You can set tracks with this thing. You can record how you want it to drive. You can set it on a north thing, and then obviously you can use the anchor lock function when you see a fish. I'll anchor lock, sight cast, unanchor lock, find a fish, anchor lock, sight cast. Same thing, and it just makes fishing by yourself so much more easier. And then one of the last things I wanted to add to this boat to make it functional and just make life easier was the 4-bank, 10 amp hour each bank onboard battery charger. Now I went with the Genius, and I love this thing, absolutely love it, because it is not only simple. I mean, you just take the plug, you plug it in, boom, you're charging all 4 of your batteries at one time, and it's a smart charger, so once they're full, it's just gonna sit there and it's gonna regulate those batteries to stay full. So when you unplug it, you're hitting the water. You do not have to think twice about, are my batteries ready, or they're gonna last this entire trip. So those are a few things that I added to this boat that I really think sets it apart from if I had just skimped out on some of the technology side of this build. So once I got some of the electronics done, that was one of those things that while Terry was working on the doors, I was gonna be getting some of the electronic stuff done. I can't help him with the welding on the doors. Again, that's out of my realm of expertise there, and Terry is an expert at it. So once we got done with that, it was time to add on our latches. I went ahead, same thing with eBay. They were about $35 a piece, and we went with 10 latches all around the boat. We went ahead, we drilled centered. You wanna measure them. All of the latches are gonna be the exact same spot. That way, everything's uniform and it looks clean. I went with the twist and open style latches. They look clean to me. They were stainless steel, and I don't like the slam shut style because I feel like long term, they're just not gonna last as long as they should. One of the things we liked to do, or I really wanted to do with this rebuild, was to move a lot of the weight forward, especially with adding a 50 horsepower on the back. 50 horsepower is the max horsepower for this boat. So I wanted to move a lot of the weight from the back to the front to make it sit good. The 2 batteries for the trolling motor were moved all the way to the front compartment. That moved a lot of the weight forward, especially with having the iPilot up there. I also put the cooler all the way up there. That way, you know, it's loaded down with ice and hopefully fish. It would offset things. And then the boat motor battery and the accessory battery is sit right underneath my feet where I stand when I'm at the console. It's going to be between the console and the cooler seat, and it sits right in there. And then in the back, before, how Bass Tracker does it is they have the gas tank to one side in the back and then 2 batteries to the other side. I didn't like that. Again, too much weight in the back. So what we did, we left the gas tank back there. Obviously, you don't want to be running gas hoses all over your boat. So I left the gas tank back there. We got new hoses for the boat, and then we actually centered the gas tank and then created a custom, you know, holder for it so it would strap down, it would stay good, but it was also centered on the boat to not off-put any weight to one side or the other. So once we got a lot of this technical side stuff done, it was finally time to start with the wiring. We went to Lowe's and we've got, you know, all the heat shrink and all the wire connectors, and we got brand new wire on big spools that we got, and it was time to put some life to this boat, give it some power, baby. So we obviously ran 6 gauge wire for the leads for our motor, for the power for the motor, and then we used 10 to 12 to 14 gauge from the center console out to all of our accessories. Obviously the heavier gauge wire was going to be closer because it's holding more power, and then, you know, the further out you got to our LED lights and that kind of stuff was going to be more the smaller 14 gauge style wires. We did not go below 14 gauge wire. That was just a personal preference, and it makes me feel better about the longevity of the boat there. Now, after running a lot of our wire leads and just kind of getting the base of our wires ran through the boat, you know, that way when we wanted to add the light or we wanted to add the pump, we could just connect and be done with it. Our next step before we finished the wiring was to add the decking. Now, the decking I chose to go with was HydroTurf. Now, I went with HydroTurf for a multitude of reasons, and I will explain why in just a second, but I want you guys to know that in the link in the description below, I will put the link to where you can find HydroTurf in big rolls. Now, I did price out Marine Mat, I did price out SeaDek. I do not have $2,100 to $2,500 to SeaDek or Marine Mat my entire boat. If I could, I would, and if you can, you should, but HydroTurf is a perfect, cheap option, and it's super functional. And honestly, I don't think it's that much different than SeaDek, if I'm being honest with you. But we went ahead and went with HydroTurf. I think it was something like $92 a roll. 3 rolls did my entire boat. It worked out perfect for 3 rolls, and I went ahead and paid extra for the 3M peel and stick style backing. I didn't want to worry about spraying, you know, sticky stuff on the bottom and sticking it and maybe getting too much or too little in one place and the other. I recommend going ahead and just paying the extra for that 3M peel and stick back because it was super easy. We cut what we wanted, we peeled it, and we stuck it. As you guys can see here, we prepped the deck looking clean and sharp. We peeled, we cut how we wanted to, we laid the decking down. It didn't take long. This deck cuts perfect with a good sharp box knife. It was super easy to use, super easy to work with, and I am super impressed with how this stuff has held up so far. I've been using it really hard, really vigorous for about 10 months now, and not even slightly one corner has started to peel yet. So HydroTurf, good job. It holds up good, and if you guys are looking to put a padded decking on your boat, HydroTurf is the way to go. After laying down the HydroTurf, we went ahead, took that box cutter knife, cut out our doors, cut out the hole for our console wiring, and we cut out, you know, all the latches and stuff like that. The boat came to life then. I mean, you could just see like, okay, this is where I'm gonna be standing when I see that big redfish come through. And then it was time to add all the accessories back on. So I went ahead and I went with some LED deck lighting as well as LED navigation lights. All this stuff came from eBay except for the blue and the white LED strips, which came from Academy. I will try to link that stuff in the description below from where I ordered it on Amazon, eBay, and Academy. But they're great lights. They're simple. LEDs don't pull a lot of power, and obviously, you know, we had to go with the red, white, and blue style deck lighting. So when it's night or more early morning, we're launching the boat, we can launch in style a little bit. And then the navigation lights up front, I just didn't want to mess with unplugging, you know, that pole and then unplugging it, replugging it, ripping it off, getting it caught. So those LED navigation red and green light strips were just perfect for what we wanted to do. So at this point in the build, we pretty much had all the functional stuff done. We had the boat pretty much planned out, and now all we had to do was kind of bring up the aesthetic side of things and then make things ready to, to last for the longevity of the life of the boat. So we had the console, we had the polling platform, we had the cooler seat, and what we needed to do was we needed to take them, we needed to sand them down, get a little bit of that coating off, and then we took Mama's aluminum polish. You can find it at Walmart, and it's great. You put it on a cloth, you'll wipe on, it's wax on, wax off with that stuff. But it's gonna put, not only is it gonna make it shine, and I mean, as you guys can see in this picture, boy does it make it shine, but it also adds a little bit of a protective coating that way, when I'm doing saltwater fishing and stuff like that, you're getting spray on it, it's not gonna eat and rust through that aluminum. It's gonna make it last longer, and then it's also gonna make it look good. So at this point in the build, we're looking about 48 to 49 days in. Terry, again, super huge thank you to Mr. Terry, because he basically put everything aside, all the jobs he was doing, opened his shop up to my boat, and didn't take, any more work for 40 days for me. So it was getting to that time where he was like, look, I got some projects backing up. Why don't you take this console, take the polling platform, take the cooler seat home, and then polish them up while you're at home. So I'll show you guys a couple pictures here of, at home. Boy, does that take some time, but man, is it rewarding in the end, because it looks so clean and it's ready to go for some saltwater fishing. So, I'd take it and it would look a little bit rough, and then you polish it, sand it down, polish it up with that Mama's aluminum polish, and boom, she's ready to go again. So one of the things I was curious about was how this boat was going to handle a little bit of chop and a little bit of rough water. As you guys can see in the video right now, I put it through some rough stuff. I mean, obviously I don't want to get too carried away with it, but the wind kicks up in the bay, she handles great. I trimmed that motor up a little bit to put the bow up in the air. It'll break right through some waves. It handles good side to side. It turns great. And this boat is just a joy. So much fun to just ride in. And then when you fish in it, I mean, you're sleek, your draft is low, you can run in some skinny water, and it's just fun. Now, my goal as of today is just to catch as many cool fish in this boat as I can. The reason I redid this boat was in memory of Papa, and he was a huge fisherman, and he would just be over the top moon to know the fish I've caught in this boat. And I mean, we plan to catch more fish in this boat. So to give you guys a little bit of an idea, I mean, we've caught redfish, sheep's head, we've caught cow nose rays for shark bait, black drum, red snapper, jack crevalle on the boat, bluefish, Spanish mackerel. That's just in the last 6-7 months since I've been using it a lot during the summertime. A couple of my big goals out of this boat, my 3 big goals really, are I want a cobia off the beach on the boat, I want a tarpon on this boat, and I want a kingfish on this boat. Now I also want a bonita, because that'd be just cool in general. But now obviously with targeting these fish, especially cobia and tarpon, and even kingfish, you got to do them off the beach for the most part. So I'll be safe, and we'll be safe, and we'll pick our days. You have to pick your days, and you have to stay close to shore and all that good stuff. But you mark my words, we are going to catch a tarpon and a cobia and a kingfish off of this bass tracker before it's all said and done. So guys, thanks for watching this video. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the walk around section of this boat. Alrighty, Gulf Coast Nation, thank you guys so much for the love and support you guys have shown to our channel. I hope you guys enjoyed the kind of background story and the process of how I rebuilt this boat. But now it is time to go through the walkthrough and what it looks like today. So to start off with here, these navigation lights is what I was talking about earlier. I love these things. They're really low profile. I've had a couple times where I bump up against the dock. They're pretty rigid. They take a good, beating. I guess you're not obviously wanting to put them through a beating, but they stick well. They're not peeling up at all, and they've lasted well. They're only like 10, 15 bucks, and I recommend these things. The wiring just runs right through here. Put a little bit of goo on them. I did like some of the stuff we tried to keep with this boat was like these are the original cleats, and we got some in the back that are the original cleats, but just kind of cool, I guess, to be able to use them. But here's the iPilot. Absolutely love this thing. The Riptide, it's your manual push down, push up type of deal. This is another one of those Terry Genius devices here. As you can see, it just bolts on through the inside here, and it just comes up and make sure that motor, I just use this little twisty tie when I'm running somewhere or I'm driving with it, and it just keeps it from bouncing super, super hard. Here's my cooler up front. Nothing fancy here, just a little pad eye, run a little strap down so your cooler doesn't bounce around, but you can, you can stand up here and sight cast, or obviously, this is my cooler for keeping all the drinks and stuff like that in. You can see this decking. I just absolutely love this decking. Here's our twist seals that I'm gonna try to put in the lengthening below. Just a couple simple 12-volt batteries. They're linked for that 12 volts. So you're gonna go your positive to your positive, and then your positive and negative together to go back to the motor. And then underneath here for a little access light if I'm gonna have to access this at all. Don't know actually what I did with it. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there's a little light underneath there. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but we put some access lights down in all these hatches. So as you can see, here's our front. This is the blue LEDs. Up underneath, these are the Academy ones. I do enjoy them. Here's the white, same thing. These are from Academy. Just up underneath, get those out of the way. Just up underneath the boat, real low profile. You don't notice them. You're not gonna ding them. I don't want to put them down here because I was afraid of someone kicking them and stuff. Obviously they can still get tore up, but you can see the wiring is just real simple, real sleek. It runs underneath here. I put a little bit of goo underneath there so the wire wouldn't fall down, and then it really simply goes right down in here and underneath the deck. So going to the back side, well actually let's jump up here to the front. You can see where it says GoPro here. We added an access door here, as you guys saw in some of those pictures, so I can just take all these screws out and I can access right underneath here if I want to mess with any of the wiring. And then we did the same style deal here with this plate. I need to clean this off, but it needs some more polish. But you can take all these screws off and then access right inside that entire console. Here's this Garmin unit. Same thing. I love this thing. Just real simple, big display. It sits good on the console, and just super easy to read. And if I'm fishing up front or in the front, I can just twist it. I can stand here. I can be fishing, looking back at the fish finder, that kind of stuff. And then obviously I'm real OCD, so I keep the cover on it. Here's your iPilot heading sensor. I put it in this position. Obviously there's a lot of ways I can put it underneath the deck, but when I'm by myself, if I need to pair it, you hit this button and then you hit the pair button on the iPilot. From here, by myself, I can reach it. If you put it below, you need two people. So I wanted to be able to access it by myself. You got your key start here, got your hydraulic steering wheel here. Love it, real smooth. Lost the cap to that, don't like that. But all of our switch panel here, I'll go through the switch panel here in a little bit, but I got bilge pump, live well pump. I've got our deck lights, underneath lights, our back navigation light, our stern light, and then our navigation lights up front. You've got a 12 volt, couple of USBs right here, and then you've also got your 12 volt, car style battery, and then you got your voltmeter right here to, see where your battery is at. So here's the side access doors I was talking about. These are a little bit, you can see they're a little bit longer. I keep some life jackets underneath here. On one side, got life jackets, and then on the other side, when I jump over here, this is normally where I keep my tackle bag. I bring a big old Bass Pro Shops waterproof tackle bag with all my tackle boxes in it and that kind of stuff. And as you guys can see, I put some trays in here too, just to put stuff in loosely. A little bit dirty underneath here, but we got the onboard battery charger, and then all it is just a simple, come on now, just a simple plug and go, and you got all your batteries charging up. So, and then there's the that genius wire box that I was talking about. All the wires are right in here, and I'll show you on the other side here where they're at, little trash can deal. And then this is where all the wires are coming down from the console and back up. The console itself, you can see where this weld is. I mean, this is all Terry here. This is some beautiful work. And then he did these handles on here just for extra support. I run a GoPro off here to get a different view, and then he ran the bars around the outside to give it some more rigidity. It's just solid to the boat. This thing is basically part of the structural. Now, it's not the cleanest wiring underneath here. Partly that's my fault, but it is, it's all functional, and it runs to the same thing. So as you can see, there's that wiring box, you know, that's inside that hatch we were just in over there. All the wiring drops down from the console to our batteries. Right now the motor's unhooked because of course the relay assembly went out, so I've got to get a new relay assembly. You guys know if you have a boat, you're just going to be spending some money on it. So here's the boat battery, here's my accessory battery, and then you know all the battery charger leads go to all your positive and negatives to your batteries. Moving back to our cooler seat, as you guys saw in the pictures, it had these four rod holders here. We went ahead and added these 2 rod holders. They just jet out, and again, this aluminum work is just amazing here. All of it's welded by Mr. Terry. All of this is bent by Mr. Terry, and it's just great. This is that cooler stop I was talking about. So if you opened it and it wasn't there, you know, it would like flip the cooler back, or it would hit your rods and reels and stuff. In here, I just keep, you know, tool kit, some octane boost stay-bill stuff, and then, you know, I got a towel, I got my flares, I got some tools, I got the fire extinguisher, and then this is, you know, I'll put my phone and wallet. I got safety gear and rain poncho and all that stuff. But this is basically, I don't intend on using this for ice or fish or anything like that. Basically just a giant dry storage. That's how I do it, you know, how we do it in the Sea Fox 2. I just like it better. And then this seat is just an Igloo brand, you know, real simple, nice cushion seat. It'll last forever if I take care of it. Over here, keep my anchor down there and a little throw device to keep it legal. Got some fish grips here. There's those handles that, you know, I just use a little bit of that same twisty tie stuff to the side. And then these rod holder caps, if you guys are looking at making any of these rod holders, these are actually off eBay. Same thing, I'll try to link these in the description below, and they're just super simple. They just pop on and pop off. Same thing with the rod holders back here. But before we get too excited, I'll move to the live well here. Here's our live well door. Does really good. Try to keep the live well super clean so it's not stinky in there. It's the original live well from the boat. It's just been cleaned up really good. So that is also one of those cool things that I like. And then here's that big door I was talking about. It's a behemoth. It's a little bit dirty in here, but this is where, you know, bilge pump, well, live well pump, bilge pump. I got a manual bilge pump for one of those, you know, just dire situations. And then, you know, you got your gas tank here. This is the original gas tank, but really nothing else goes in back there. But it's a really big door and it has that rigidity to it. This is what I was talking about earlier, so you guys can see too, those supports. We made these. I mean, this is just a square aluminum tubing, but it gives that door, you know, when you press on the middle, you can stand on it and not have it flex on you. And then on the back here, these are the ones I definitely got off eBay. These are the red ones, and it's two 12 inches, I believe. These are 24 inch up here, and these are 2 12s right here on either side. Same thing, one of that low profile look. These are a little bit more exposed, but it works good. And same thing, original cleat, original gas cap can filler thing. And then here's our polling platform here. I'll show you guys on the ground as well. This thing is a beauty. Let me pop down actually, see if I can't do that. Oh, so here's our polling platform, and it's awesome. I love this thing. I love fishing off the top of this thing. You can see so much better. Just got, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 feet down here. These are all support bars. You can use them for climbing to or holding. Then he bent this bar out and around, so when the motor comes all the way up, it doesn't hit it. Here's your 2 rod holders. Same thing with those eBay style caps. And then, you know, he welded underneath here this aluminum plate to it. And then these 2 rod holders here and here, you guys have seen in some of the redfish videos, you know, they're just good trolling rod holders, or if you want to put a rod back for live bait or dead bait fishing, that kind of stuff. Here's my Yamaha 2002 50 horsepower 4-stroke high thrust, new stainless steel prop. This thing will scoot. I absolutely love it, besides the fact that the relay assembly is out right now, a little frustrating. But here's the hydraulic steering setup here. I went with a Sea Star. It's been great. I absolutely love it. Here's the giant transducer to this Garmin unit for it does have the side scan in it. I don't use it a ton, but I do use it in certain applications when I'm sight fishing or fishing underneath some docks and that kind of stuff. Some little things that I liked, my live well used to get plugged up a bunch when I'd run it. So for $8 you can get one of these off eBay, and it's just a little screen that filters. That way you don't have to worry about it getting plugged. Boat plug, all that good stuff. Coming around to the side, I'll show you guys the tracker sticker that I did. Put some decals on it, and then same thing, this old guy on eBay here, like 10-15 bucks. She looked good. But yeah, guys, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much it. You guys can see the light up here. It came out really good. I'm super happy with this boat. It is a super fun boat to fish out of. It's super cool that, you know, I can still fish out of the boat that, you know, Papa left to me personally. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Like I said, this boat has a lot of sentimental value, but it was also one of those builds that I feel like a lot of people wanted to know about. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. In the description, I'm gonna try and link everything that I talked about. I might forget some things, so if I do, just tell me in the comment section, hey, where's the link to this, and I'll try and grab it for you. If you guys have any questions about things that I didn't cover, I didn't talk enough about, or you wish I would have covered, just comment in the section below and I will try to answer any and all questions about this build, because I think it's awesome and I want everybody to be able to, you know, build their bass tracker or their boat the way they want it to. But guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share this video with your friends, and please don't forget to subscribe. We're gonna keep bringing it to you guys. Come on, let's go.